Hi, Year 10. Welcome to Lesson 6 of Macbeth, and that we are obviously studying for our GCSE English Literature exam. Today we'll be looking at a key scene. It's Act 3, Scene 1. We're going to read the script. We're going to watch a film clip or a performance clip, and we're going to identify significant plot moments, language and structural features as well. So, just before we actually get into Act 1, Scene 3 itself, I wanted to just recap what's happened in the two scenes before this. So far, what's happened in Act 1? In the first scene, the witches have revealed that they plan to meet Macbeth. So that's the first scene of the play. And in the second scene of the play, we find out that Scotland has defeated two invading armies thanks to the excellent fighting skills of Macbeth and Banquo. And then King Duncan is going to execute the Thane of Cawdor for treason, and he's decided that Macbeth will be the new Thane of Cawdor. So those are the two kind of summaries of what's happened so far in Act 1. So what's going to happen in Act 1, Scene 3? Well, Act 1, Scene 3, the witches are on stage again with the thunder rumbling in the background, and they begin the scene by having a very strange, weird chat about what they've been doing since they last met. They're just, catching up with each other. And it turns out the second witch has been killing swine, which is lovely. She doesn't explain why, just she's been off killing swine. But the first witch tells the other two witches that she's been insulted by a sailor's wife, and straight away the witches decide that they're going to get revenge on this sailor's wife by terrorizing her husband while he's at sea. So they're going to make a spell that's basically going to really scare this sailor while he's in the middle of the ocean. But they suddenly stop the spell because they sense that Macbeth is nearby. And here's the scene. So let's have a read of it. Third witch. A drum, Macbeth doth come. All. The weird sisters hand in hand, posters of the sea and land, thus do go about, thrice to thine, and thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up nine. Peace, the charms wound up. Enter Macbeth and Banquo. Macbeth. So foul and fair a day I have not seen. Banquo. How far is it called to Forres? What are these, so withered and so wild in their attire, that they look not like the inhabitants of the earth, and yet are on it? Live you, or are you aught that man may question? You seem to understand me, by each at once her chappy finger laying upon her skinny lips. You should be women, and yet your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so. Macbeth. Speak if you can, what are you? First witch. All hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis. Second witch. All hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. Third witch. All hail Macbeth, thou shalt be king hereafter. Banquo. Good sir, why do you start, and seem to fear things that do sound so fair? In the name of truth, are ye fantastical, or that indeed which outwardly ye show? My noble partner, you greet with great present grace. You greet with present grace and great prediction of noble having and of royal hope, that he seems rapt withal. To me you speak not. If you can look into the seeds of time and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak to me, who neither beg nor fear your favours nor your hate. So this is the first part of the scene when Macbeth and Banquo arrive. So you can see that we've got here in the first chunk, we've got the witches doing their spell bit there. You can see that they've clearly identified that Macbeth is on his way, and they quickly finish off their spell. Nice for them. On come Macbeth and Banquo, and a beautiful line here in terms of its kind of hidden meaning is Macbeth's first line in the whole play. He uses the language foul and fair a day I have not seen, which I'm sure you'll remember echoes one of the lines that the witches say in their first scene. They say, "Foul is fair, and fair is foul, and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air." At the end of the first scene in Act One. So by giving Macbeth the very same language, Shakespeare is suggesting that the witches are already influencing people in this play. Macbeth is already being subconsciously uh, manipulated by the witches because his language is so similar to theirs. Banquo's main interest at the beginning of this scene is basically how far away from where we're trying to get to. They're trying to get to the place where King Duncan is, but he's the one that notices the witches, and he is pretty mean and insulting in the way he talks about them. He calls them withered and so wild. He says that they don't look like the inhabitants of the earth, so they don't look like they belong here. That are so bizarre looking that he's never seen anything like them before. Um, he questions whether they're alive or whether there's just something that he should be questioning, like, are they really there? Is it like is he imagining what he's seeing? He notices that they understand him, insulting their physical appearance, a chappy finger, skinny lips, says they should be women, but your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so. So he's been pretty mean to these witches in his ways. He's picking on their physical appearance. Macbeth, typical for him, is quite demanding. Speak if you can. What are you? And that makes the witches turn to him then, and they, as you notice, they all hail him. First, second, and third witch all start with the same greeting. All hail Macbeth, hail to thee. But you'll notice that what they say is to do with his status. So Thane of Glamis is the job title, the position, the status that he currently possesses. There's the Thane of Cawdor, which we know because we saw Duncan talking about it. Macbeth is going to become the Thane of Cawdor. And then the third one shall be king hereafter, which is the witches telling Macbeth that he's going to be king in the future. Hereafter just means after here, after now. So future. Banquo is the first to respond, but his attention is not on the witches, it's on his friend Macbeth. Good sir, why do you start? Which tells us that Macbeth is shocked by what he's heard and even scared about the news that he's going to become Cawdor and then king. Banquo then goes back to questioning the witches. In the name of truth, he's kind of demanding answers now. Are you fantastical, as in made up, magical, or are you kind of just what kind of appear as you are? He says that my noble partner, meaning Macbeth, you greet with present grace and great prediction. So you say you've given him a really amazing prophecy there, giving him the idea that he's going to become king. And he's like, it's blown his mind. He's wrapped with all, he's like lost in his own thoughts. But he says, to me you speak not. And he says, look, if you can look into the future and say what's going to happen and what's not going to happen, tell me. I don't fear you. I'm not begging you. Tell me. So the witches tell him. And similarly to how they approach Macbeth, they use the hail. So first witch, hail. Second witch, hail. Third witch, hail. And then we get more of the information they're going to offer him. Lesser than Macbeth and greater. Not so happy, yet much happier. The third witch, thou shalt get kings, that thou be none. So all hail Macbeth and Banquo. First witch, Banquo and Macbeth, all hail. So typically of the witches, they speak in kind of riddles, these kind of opposites put together. How can Banquo be less than Macbeth and greater than him? How can he be not as happy but happier? How can he have children who are kings when he's not king himself? So quite riddled information there from the witches towards Banquo. Not like with Macbeth, who is quite clear, you're going to be Glamis, Cawdor, king, Banquo's prophecies are a little bit more confusing. Macbeth speaks again, commanding, as usual, "Stay, you imperfect speakers, tell me more." So he's got those command words, stay and tell, in his speech. "By Sinel's death, I know that I am Thane of Glamis. Sinel is Macbeth's father, and when Sinel died, that's when Macbeth became Thane of Glamis. But how of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives, a prosperous gentleman." So that tells us there that Macbeth doesn't know about the Thane of Cawdor being a traitor. In fact, he hasn't got a clue about the Thane of Cawdor whatsoever. He's praising the Thane of Cawdor there, calling him a gentleman. Now, moving on to the third part of the prophecy, the idea about being king. Macbeth says, "To be king stands not within the prospect of belief." Well, that's back to the great chain of being. Of course, it's not within his prospect of belief. Macbeth knows he can't be king because that's not how the great chain of being works. The only person who's going to become king is the heir to the throne, and that's not Macbeth. So he's basically saying it's just not possible. In fact, he even says it's not possible I can be Cawdor either. He wants more information from the witches, and he's using that command sentence structure again. "Say from whence you owe this strange intelligence, or why upon this blasted heath you stop our way with such prophetic greeting. Speak, I charge you." So Macbeth is quite demanding in the way he speaks to the witches in this little speech here. He's questioning the news he's just been told. He wants to know how they know this information, why they are telling them the future. He wants answers, and the witches just vanish, leaving him unfulfilled with just questions and no answers. Now, on the next slide, we're going to watch a clip of a Royal Shakespeare Company performance of this scene. A couple of things to note. This production slightly rearranges the opening lines that we've just looked at. Slightly just put in a slightly different order. It kind of makes sense, and I can see why dramatically they've done it. But just to bear that in mind, that the script is the way we've done it on these slides here. This production just moves it around a little bit at the beginning. Second thing to notice is you might see some of the audience members at the edge of the shot. It was filmed in front of a live audience in 2018. Another thing you might notice on the side of the stage, there's a character who looks like he's just sitting there looking bored. He is a member of the cast who, in this production, spent the entire show on stage but sitting on the edges of the stage. So that's why he's there. And if we're lucky enough to get any more clips from this production, you'll notice him in the background of other shots as well. And finally, the third thing to really mention about this production is the witches themselves in this scene. They are played by three schoolgirls. I think they're all aged around 11 or 12 years old. And by making the witches children, this production really adds a kind of extra level of kind of weirdness to the actual production. So hope you enjoy it. I hope it works when I click onto the next slide. It's a few minutes long, and if you want to watch it more than once, you're absolutely fine to do so. After the video is finished, I'll click forward and we'll go back to doing a bit more of the script reading. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this, and you think it's a real treat.
Macbeth doth come.
So foul and fair a day I have not seen.
Our first call to forest.
Shall we add sisters, hand in hand, hostess of the sea and land, thus to go about, thrice to dine and thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up 9.
What?
Peace! The charms wound up.
What are these? That look not like the inhabitants of the earth and yet are aunt. Live you? Or are you aught that men may question?
Speak, if you can. What are you?
All hail, Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis. All hail, Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. All hail, Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter.
Good sir, why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound so fair? In the name of truth, are you fantastical, or that indeed which outwardly you show? My noble partner, you greet with present grace and great prediction of noble having and of royal hope that he seems rapt withal. To me you speak not. If you can, look into the seeds of time and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak then to me, who neither beg nor fear your favours nor your hate.
Hail, hail, hail. Lesser than Macbeth. And greater. Not so happy. Yet much happier. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. So all hail Macbeth. And Banquo. Banquo and Macbeth. All hail.
Stay, you imperfect speakers, tell me more! I know I am Thane of Glamis, but how of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives, a prosperous gentleman, and to be king stands not within the prospect of belief. No more than to be of Cawdor. Say from whence you owe this strange intelligence, and why, upon this blasted heath, you stop our way with such prophetic greeting. Speak, I charge you.
So I hope you like that. It was Christopher Eccleston playing the part of Macbeth. You might recognise him from some old Doctor Who episodes. Right, so after that scene, as we just saw, the witches run off and leaves Banquo and Macbeth on stage alone. They have a little chat, the two men, about what's just happened. But that chat's interrupted quite quickly with the arrival of Ross, and who's got a message from the king. So this is what Ross's message is, and he arrives, literally a minute after the witches have left the stage. It's so quick. Ross says, "And for an earnest of a great honour, he bade me from him call thee Thane of Cawdor, in which addition, hail most worthy Thane, for it is thine." Banquo says, "What, can the devil speak true?" Beth, "The Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes?" Angus, one of the other messengers from the king, "Who was the Thane lives yet, but under heavy judgment bears that life which he deserves to lose, whether he was combined with those of Norway, or did line the rebel with hidden help and vantage, or that with both he laboured in his country's wreck. I know not. But treason's capital, confessed and proved, have overthrown him." Macbeth. And Macbeth says this as an aside, which means only the audience can hear him. "Glamis and Thane of Cawdor, the greatest is behind." When he says the greatest is behind, he means that the prospect of him becoming king is behind Cawdor. So Glamis has happened, Cawdor's happened, that he now starts to think straight away, that means me becoming king is going to happen. To Ross and Angus, the aside is over. "Thank you for your pains. Macbeth is a good-mannered man." Now to Banquo. "Do you not hope your children shall be kings?" Which is a reference to the prophecy that Banquo got from the witches, when those that gave the Thane of Cawdor to me promised no less to them. Banquo. "That trusted home might yet enkindle you unto the crown." So Banquo says, that information, the witches, was going to make you king, besides the Thane of Cawdor. But 'tis strange, and this is a really important point here from Banquo, and oftentimes, to win us to our harm, the instruments of darkness tell us truths, win us with honest trifles to betrays in deepest consequence. Cousins, a word, I pray you. And Banquo goes off and talks to Ross and Angus, leaving Macbeth on his own. Just while we pause in here to think about Banquo's words there, Banquo is suspicious of the witches. Okay, that's what this section here shows. He is suspicious. He's not just taking what they say on face value and thinking, well, that's happened, that means this is going to happen. He mistrusts them. He says to win us to our harm, so to make us kind of hurt ourselves or to damage us, to create damage, the instruments of darkness, and by that he means on this occasion the witches. He's aware of their evil potential. Tell us truths, so tell us the truth, win us with honest trifles, so they win us with like simple honesty or little bits of honesty, just to betray us in the deepest consequences. So the idea that Banquo is saying, and he's really quite wise here. He's quite aware of the potential threat that the witches are offering. Is that they've told us some truth, they've told us a bit of honesty. It all seems honest, but they could be betraying us because they are evil witches. Can't trust them, even though they seem to be telling the truth. We still shouldn't trust them. But then off he goes and has a chat with Ross and Angus, leaving Macbeth to stand on stage and have a think to himself. Macbeth says, again as an aside, so it's only the audience that can hear, 2 truths are told as happy prologues to the swelling act of the imperial theme. So when Macbeth says this, he's kind of ignoring Banquo's advice from a moment ago about, yes, it's the truth, yes, they seem honest, but they are evil and we shouldn't trust them. Macbeth has kind of just ignored that bit of advice. He's still focusing on the 2 bits of truth, the fact that he's Thane of Cawdor and he was Thane of Glamis. Those 2 truths are what Macbeth is focusing on. And he sees them as a happy prologue. A prologue is the part of a play or a story that goes before the main thing starts. So it's like the introduction. So he sees the Thane of Glamis and the Thane of Cawdor as being an introduction to what he calls the swelling act of the imperial theme. And that means that's a reference to him becoming bigger and becoming king. Now the language there, the word swelling, isn't necessarily a positive word. If something is swollen, it suggests it's got too big, it's not healthy, it might even be infected. It's something that's swollen is not in a good state, but Macbeth is using this word swelling to imagine the rise and his own status. It gives it. He's thinking about a positive thing using negative language. So again, that suggesting that what he's thinking about here isn't actually good. Macbeth carries on talking to himself. He says, "Cannot be ill, cannot be good." So he's aware there's the evil witches. He's kind of listening now. He's remembering what Banquo said, and he's saying, "Well, it can't be wrong, and it can't be good." So he's trying to work out whether this news or the witches' prophecies are good or bad. If ill, if bad, why has it given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth? So if they're bad, why is it shown to be true? Because the truth's good, right, isn't it? I am Thane of Cawdor. But if it's good, why do I yield to that suggestion, whose horrid image doth unfix my hair, and make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature? So here's another kind of reference a little bit to the great chain of being. He's scared, he's kind of freaking out a little bit at the idea of becoming king, because it goes against everything that he's been brought up to believe. He calls it a horrid image. Okay, the idea of him becoming king is a horrid image. Okay, and it's making his heart knock at his ribs against the use of nature, so it's against the natural order of things. So it's kind of making him feel quite shocked, scared, worried. He's physically reacting in a negative way to this idea that nature is going to be altered and messed up with him becoming king. Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is fantastical, shakes so to my single state of man that function is smothered in surmise, and nothing is what is not. So here he's talking about, again, the ideas that are whizzing through his head. Horrible imaginings. The things he's thinking about are horrible. You know, murder, whose murder is yet but fantastical. This kind of fancy. Is he already thinking about killing King Duncan? Is that where his head's already gone to within just a few seconds of being told he's Thane of Cawdor? He now thinks he's going to be king, and he's already thinking that he's going to kill Duncan to do it. It's quite an alarming leap in his thinking if that is where he's going. Banquo turns to look at Macbeth. Look how our partner's wrapped. Again, that means he's lost in his thoughts. He clearly has got a lot on his mind, and Banquo can see that by looking at him. Macbeth, still talking to himself. If chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir. And that means basically, if fortune is going to make me king, well, luck and fortune may give me it without me having to do anything. So he's kind of got a contradiction here. The bit in blue at the top of this page, he's thinking about, what am I going to have to do to become king? And he's got horrible ideas of what that might be. But now he's saying, well, it might just happen if I do nothing. I could just sit down here and not move, and it might happen. So it's he doesn't know how he's going to become king, and that is kind of now messing around with his head. He believes he's going to become king, but he's got no idea how it's going to happen. So Banquo now speaks, and he says, new honours come upon him like our strange garments, cleave not to their mould, but with aid of use. And well, that's basically him saying that the new title he's been given doesn't quite fit him properly. It's like he's got some new clothes on, strange garments, some new clothes that don't quite fit him yet. But he'll get used to it as he gets used to the idea of becoming Thane of Cawdor. He'll settle into it. He'll be fine. It just shows that Banquo's quite a nice guy. He can see that Macbeth is not quite happy. Remember that Banquo's talking to Ross and Angus. He's away from Macbeth on the stage, and he can see that his mate is struggling to kind of come to terms with what's going on. And Banquo's like, he's able to empathise. He can see how Macbeth is feeling. It shows that they're close friends. Macbeth, another aside, he's still talking to himself like this is a good way from Shakespeare's point of view of showing Macbeth's kind of mental instability, that he's talking so much to himself in this scene. Come what come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day. Now he's saying here, what will be will be. Regardless, time moves on. Even on a rough day, it still lasts 24 hours. So it's like it's almost like he's signing off here with his thoughts. Like what's going to happen will happen. Okay, it might be this, but he's just settled that I'm going to do nothing. I'm not going to do anything horrible to become king. I'm just going to see what happens, come what may. Will this is what will happen. I'm just going to wait and see. So it sounds like he's kind of resolved his thoughts a little bit here. Banquo comes in. Worthy Macbeth, we stay upon your leisure. Basically, worthy Macbeth. Again, that nice, respectful way of talking to Macbeth. We're waiting for you. They want to move on. They want to get on with the journey, but we're waiting because you're standing there looking like you're troubled by stuff. Macbeth apologizes. Give me your favour. I apologize. My dull brain was wrought with things forgotten. He lies here. Okay, he's lying to Banquo. He's not being honest. He's saying that, oh, I was just trying to remember something that I've forgotten. Or, did I leave the oven on? That kind of thing. Is he's made up a little white lie. Oh, I can't remember what I was thinking about. But it is a lie. We know what he was thinking, and he's already lying to Banquo, his best friend, So that would, again, it just shows that his character is already turning towards the dark side a little bit, without anyone else really doing any manipulation of him. This is all his internal thoughts from his own brain, his own personality. Kind gentlemen, your pains are registered where every day I turn to the leaf to read them. Let us toward the king. Think upon what has chanced, and at more time, the interim having weighed it, let us speak our free hearts to each other. So, what Beth is saying there, oh, kind gentlemen, I'm sorry, yes, I appreciate you being waiting here now. It's my fault for holding us back. Let's go towards the king. Let's get on, move on. Let's leave now. Then he says to Banquo, think upon what's chance, and at more time, so let's think about what's happened here. And when we've had a bit more time, to kind of think about it more carefully, let's speak about it to each other. Let's be honest and speak to each other about it. Banquo, generously, very gladly, he'd love to talk about what's happened. Again, I don't think Banquo here is fully aware of the kind of the impact this news has had on Macbeth and the change that's already happening in his friend. Banquo still seems very much to be thinking Macbeth is still his old self. And Macbeth finishes the scene. Till then, enough. Come, friends. And they exit. Okay, so the last part of today's lesson. Two tasks. If you've got time, you can do both of them, or you could choose one or the other if you've not got as much time. One, write a brief summary of what's happened in this scene. Make sure you include details about the witches, prophecies to Macbeth and Banquo. So yeah, it's really important to have little scene summaries so that when you come to revise, you can remember exactly what happens and where. So yeah, that's an important task. And secondly, also important, explain how Macbeth is shown to be already having an inner conflict with himself in this scene. Throughout the play, as we go through the story, Macbeth's mental state is constantly kind of challenged and stressed by the things that are happening. And it's interesting that right here, still in the very early part of Act 1, he's already got this kind of inner conflict developing within him. So it'd be nice for you to pick out some of the quotes or some of the moments or some of the structural features, like the asides, for example, that kind of help to show the audience that he has got this inner turmoil as he tries to work out in his own head what he should be doing. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. It's a really, I think, if you've got any issues, please send me an email or a comment in Google Classroom. It's really hard to get your head around Macbeth when we're in school, so this is not easy. So don't be thinking, this that you're not bright or you're not clever if you're having trouble with this. This is really tough stuff we're doing. But if you've got any questions, please just send me an email or put it in the Google Classroom comments, and I'll get back to you and help you out with what you need to know. Okay, guys, good luck with this, and missing you as always.